Hello everyone out there, welcome back to the Phantoms Fanatic YouTube channel. I am back with another review, and this review is of Oppenheimer, released this year in 2023, starring Cillian Murphy, Florence Pugh, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Rami Malek, Josh Hartnett, Gary Oldman, Devin Bostick, Josh Peck, and a huge bunch of A-list celebrities that it would take me forever to list them all. And it was directed by Christopher Nolan. The plot of Oppenheimer is that J. Robert Oppenheimer is a physicist, and during World War II, a colonel appoints Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project to work on a weapon that would end the war and bring millions of lives home. But Oppenheimer is debating to use such a weapon of huge power against other people, or to create a weapon of such power known as the atom bomb. Obviously, I am a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. I've reviewed probably my favorite movie of his, The Prestige, earlier this year, or was it last year? I forget. I just remember I've made a review on that. And also, yes, I am finally back. New set and everything. I was in the middle of moving, and I've had a lot of troubles with the move and troubles with vehicles and shit like that, so I didn't really feel like making any reviews. I saw this when it came out. The thing is, I still wanted to talk about this even though I've seen other things since then, but pretty much the schedule going forward is I'm going to try to at least give 2 reviews a week, and then maybe a Meandering Conversations podcast, and maybe some streams here and there. But anyways, let's talk about Oppenheimer. As I said, I am a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. He has made some great movies that I am a huge fan of, including The Prestige, Inception, the Dark Knight trilogy, specifically The Dark Knight I'm a huge fan of. Christopher Nolan is one of those directors that has his own style to it and talks hugely about like the dialogue and characters' philosophy in his films. And obviously I feel like he's the perfect one to tell the story of Oppenheimer, of a man who is very complex and has opinions about certain things, but also has a mind that he's able to see all this different, shit and understand physics at a different point that other people will. And his contemplation of whether to build a weapon of such force, to use it on other people, to have the chance that this weapon could blow up the world. I feel like Nolan was a good person to pick for that, especially the way that he directs this movie, because there's black and white scenes obviously, but also Nolan always likes to play with telling his stories not in the same order, and he definitely does that here. He edits things like 3 different timelines but happening concurrent, like 3 different points of time of the story, but he edits them concurrently, because you have one story of Oppenheimer being audited and practically put on trial for certain things that he did. And then you have a person in the future after the Oppenheimer is trialed, and then you have the events of Oppenheimer's life as he's describing them going through. I'm a huge fan of Nolan's direction here. I feel like he's the perfect one to tell this story about a nuclear bomb going off. There are some scenes that build such an intense feel and like disturbing mood that genuinely gives you like a sense of just upright uneasiness in this, and it builds up to such great ideas of how he just edits around things. Even though it does lead to some comedic moments, he edits around things and builds up the tension and the suspense the character is feeling because of the uncomfortable situations they are put through. And I really do like that, how you really get an idea of what is going through Oppenheimer's head through this film, and the writing really does show that. The dialogue is very good. There's also a good amount of comedic moments for how depressing the subject matter you would think would be, especially because this is a 3-hour drama that, has black and white footages in it. But in my opinion, you don't feel the length at all, and I was relatively engaged by all the acting on screen, by what they were talking about, how they were talking about how to build the bomb and shit like that. And I think it's very effectively done, especially with the editing. The editing really does sell a lot of this film. like most of Nolan's films, the editing is one of the most important parts. And the acting is all top-notch in this. Cillian Murphy was perfect to play Oppenheimer. He really captures this character well. And as a scientist who has such a unique mind, who can see all this shit, but he can't always describe it properly, I feel like Cillian Murphy plays it very well in this part, especially because he is Jewish. Oppenheimer is Jewish, and he feels like he needs to help with the war efforts, but they first of all don't want him because he's had political opinions that lead him to communist parties. But it's weird because he has opinions about that, but he also doesn't seem to act on them all the time, which I think is interesting. And Cillian Murphy plays the character insanely well, especially when you get to the scenes where he has to lead and describe his abstract thoughts of physics and theory and stuff like that, of them trying to figure out how to create the bomb, how to do certain things. And I feel like it is very well set up, and especially because this character, if you guys don't know the story of Oppenheimer, and it is a bit of a spoiler for the film, is that after he builds the bomb, he tries to go anti-nuclear because he personally does not think it's a good idea. He feels like at the moment he had to build the bomb, and there's huge debates about whether he should have or not. But what I really do enjoy about that is that you kind of see why he thinks this has to be done, and why he thinks like maybe it's the best move to use this, or he debates with the higher ups like maybe we should do it this way instead of just using the bomb straight up. And I feel like all of that dialogue is just so engaging and interesting. And when you get to the point where like near the end of this film, you get like his opinion on the world, and it does make sense why this character would feel like that. Like after all this effort he put in to helping these people, and just because he simply has a different opinion and then everybody else treats him like shit after that point, I find it very interesting and compelling that the character would say that, because you understand why he would be thinking that. You see the shit that he went through, all the time and effort he put into getting the nuclear bomb made because he thought that he had to, and then the people he tried to help and support just turn against him. I find it insanely interesting, and Cillian Murphy plays Oppenheimer insanely well. All the other actors do such a great job. Robert Downey Jr. gives an amazing performance as Lewis Strauss. Emily Blunt as Oppenheimer's wife also gives a great performance. She might have one of my favorite scenes of the movie, and everybody just does a great job. And one thing that I respect about Nolan as a director is that he has all these A-list celebrities, but in smaller parts. I always enjoy that that he did that, and especially with Oppenheimer. For it being as long as it is, I still feel like you are interested, at least for me. Obviously, Oppenheimer, this film, a 3-hour drama with mostly dialogue and not the huge amount of action, I still find it very interesting. It reminded me of a lot of the HBO Chernobyl series, and I was obsessed with the Chernobyl miniseries, and this movie, I really like how they go into the science of what needs to happen. The editing is fast-paced, so you're never bored with the dialogue scenes, and I think Nolan does that very well in this, his editing and shot direction, and it's also a beautifully shot film. The only problem I have with it is it's like last third. It did start to lose me a bit because it drops one of the storylines and then you cut back between so many other different ones and points in time that, while I enjoy that Nolan did it that way, I do feel like it does drag a little bit and did start to lose me, but then it brought it back around, because there's a point where I think you could end this film really well near the end of it. Like, it would have a great ending if you ended it near the end of where I think it would, but it does keep going after that point, but I still feel like it sticks the landing and still tells a full story. It definitely is worthwhile near the end, even though I did get a bit sidetracked with the whole cutting around things. But yeah, Oppenheimer, I really enjoyed this film. Nolan really does prove himself in this one. This might rival The Prestige for my favorite film. I love Nolan's direction in this, the shot cinematography, the fact that all these actors are giving it their all. Cillian Murphy, I honestly think, is a shoo-in for an Oscar nod, and same thing with Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss. Both of those actors play these characters insanely well. All the acting is top-notch in this, and the writing and directing by Nolan is also insanely well. I enjoyed the hell out of Oppenheimer, which it will get a score of 4.5 nuclear bombs that might cause a chain reaction that will blow up the world out of 5. I know, I talked a lot of good about this movie, but from the fact that it did lose me a little bit in its last half, that's why I feel like it loses half a point there. But it's still really good. I highly recommend Oppenheimer. Obviously, if you're not into 3-hour-long dramas where they talk about philosophy and character studies throughout the most of the film, it's not the film for you. But if you do like those films, I feel like you can give this movie a shot. I really did enjoy Oppenheimer. So yeah, I recommend it. Please leave your thoughts on the review in the comments down below. Leave your thoughts as the movie as well. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to like, subscribe, check out the channel. And yes, the next review will be of Talk to Me, which will be out soon. So I will see you all later, and I believe I've blown up the world. And when I said that we might cause a chain reaction that would blow up the world, I'm afraid I did. Anyways, see ya.